after incidents take place and requiring that agents wear body cameras. Prohibiting the use of face coverings was among the least popular proposals. When asked about abolishing ICE altogether, though, no voters said they supported the idea. Rich Tao asked two of them, Ernie H. and Scott G., why.
You guys have been highly critical of ICE. Why aren't you in favor of abolishing ICE altogether?
They have a job to do.
You can't have a country without borders, and someone needs to enforce that.
Tao says it should be a sign to the administration and Republicans that ICE needs to be reined in. But he warned a push from Democrats to abolish ICE, which the party has not embraced, could be a liability for them, among swing voters in particular. Ashley Lopez, NPR News.
With Valentine's Day on the horizon, maybe you're thinking about that one special person. Well, a recent study looked across different mammals and ranked how monogamous they are. Humans register fairly high on the commitment scale, but we're edged out by a few other species like beavers and Ethiopian wolves. NPR's Katie Riddle reports on what monogamy in the animal world tells us about ourselves.
When he goes on research trips, Greg O'Cory Crow stays out on the ice for weeks, observing beluga whales and their mating strategies. He says recent developments in technology, better sensors, and smaller instruments now allow him and his colleagues unprecedented access to observe the whale's behavior.
So we can go anywhere, set up a camp, and then just deploy with a very small team. And oh my God, it's mind-blowing what you get to see.
One such trip was off the coast of Alaska, observing a community of 2,000 whales. They studied the way these whales choose mating partners. They didn't necessarily think that the whales were monogamous, but they did think it was the males who were primarily seeking out multiple partners. Turns out the females also want to mix things up.
All our predictions based on, big, powerful males dominating the breeding season hasn't held up.
He wonders if the females are working to establish a big whale village rather than a small nuclear family. This strategy is similar to one that some primates use, says Kit Opie. He studies evolutionary anthropology at University of Bristol. Chimpanzee and baboon females mate with multiple males. That keeps their offspring safe, says Opie.
Because all the males think, I could be the father of the subsequent infant, so I'm not going to harm it. And it's a really good strategy.
Other primates, says Opie, do have more monogamous arrangements where both parents protect and care for their young. Like the small apes called gibbons, they can form long-term bonds in small family units.
In the gibbons, the male and the female and their offspring will have a really, really heavy-duty border around their territory, and they keep every adult out.
Humans, says Opie, have an unusual combination of these two strategies. We have monogamous partnerships within big groups. We likely evolved into this arrangement hundreds of thousands of years ago.
This is the theory of the origin of language, the origin of culture, why humans are here, why we're talking on Zoom, and all the rest of it.
Humans have mostly been practicing something they call pair-bonded monogamy since then, anthropologists say, but not 100%. Human behavior is especially flexible. It's culture rather than biology that determines the way we deviate from the one partner at a time model. Opie points to this example. Once humans started to accumulate property, polygamy, or the practice of having multiple partners, became more prevalent.
It's better to go with a rich man, even if you're kind of second or third wife, than to go for a kind of an average income man and be the only wife.
When humans move toward exclusively monogamous cultures, there's usually a belief system, like religion, involved. That's according to Robin Dunbar, who studies evolutionary psychology at University of Oxford.
The rest that are monogamous are almost always enforced monogamies, which, of course, is universal for Christianity, with very few exceptions.
With modern Americans drifting away from Christianity in recent decades, and with the relatively recent invention of birth control, some surveys show that Americans are today more open to the practice of multiple partners and unconventional family arrangements, especially young people. But Americans, says Dunbar, should not have the hubris to think they invented this practice.
America has retained its religious base, so maybe it's a bit more of a shock to contemporary Americans.
At our core, says Dunbar, on the question of monogamy, we are conflicted. That's part of what makes us human. Katie Riddle, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
How did you feel when you saw him, Clarice?
Anthony Hopkins launched a fictional cannibal into pop culture orbit. Now a new book on the creation of the character looks at why he's got such a grip on us.
Hannibal Lecter, as exaggerated as he is in some ways, feels very real.
Brian Raftery on Hannibal Lecter, A Life, Saturday on Weekend Edition from NPR News.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly at the Munich Security Conference. When I was a kid, back in the 80s, my school held emergency drills, fire drills, tornado drills, nuclear drills. The plan for the latter was we were supposed to crouch under our classroom desks, arms crossed over our heads for protection. With the benefit of hindsight, hiding under our desks probably would not have protected us much from an incoming nuclear warhead. Well, fast forward 4 decades, we seem to be in a new nuclear era. The Cold War is over, but the questions, how do we secure the nukes, whether to build more nukes, they're as live as ever. And those questions are on the minds of national security leaders gathering here in Munich. Among them, Christine Wormuth, former Army Secretary, now President and CEO of the Nuclear Threat Initiative. That's a nonpartisan group dedicated to reducing the nuclear threat. Secretary Wormuth, great to see you. Welcome to Munich.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I did those drills under my desk as well.
Yeah. Probably would not have done us much good.
Definitely would not have helped us.
So to take stock of where we are this moment, the last nuclear arms treaty between the United States and Russia just expired. Late last month, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, their doomsday clock was set to 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been in nearly 8 decades of doing it. How dangerous is the current moment?
The current moment is quite dangerous. We are now without any kind of a treaty putting limits on strategic nuclear weapons for the first time since 1972. China is rapidly building up its nuclear arsenal. They are expected to have 1,000 nuclear weapons by 2030. So it's a pretty dangerous time, I think.
The treaty that just expired, New START, it was known as, the Russians actually offered to extend it. Trump administration said, no, we want something better, and so it expired, and now we have nothing. Good idea? Missed opportunity? What do you think?
Well, I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity, but I'm heartened because, as I understand it, we were in Abu Dhabi with the Russians just recently talking to them about perhaps some sort of continued limits on our strategic nukes. So I hope that those talks continue because I think it would be very important to try to keep some limits at least in place, even if it's not through a formal treaty.
But is any treaty that could be any kind of agreement toothless if China isn't in it?
No, it's not toothless. I think the idea of a three-way treaty is a bridge too far. I think, frankly, the Chinese want to establish parity with Russia and the United States. But I think the possibility of an agreement with each country separately is something to potentially pursue.
What about the Europeans? Since we're standing here in Munich, in Germany, the buzz in Europe is all about figuring out how to navigate a world where they may not be able to rely on the U.S. nuclear umbrella. Can Europe still rely on the U.S. nuclear umbrella?
I think it's very important that the administration communicate clearly to the Europeans that they can rely on our nuclear umbrella, because the last thing we need is what is called friendly proliferation. The last thing we want to see is a country like Poland or even Germany thinking about getting its own nuclear weapons. That's not going to be in the interests of the United States.
What about where does France fit in? Currently, it sounds like you hope for forever that is the only country on the European continent with nuclear weapons.
Well, the French and the UK nuclear weapons are an important part of the overall umbrella for Europe. So, I wouldn't be surprised if France and Britain are having conversations about what that responsibility looks like if the United States is moving to a more transactional posture relative to Europe.
So, bottom line, to bring us back to where we started, are we looking at a future where school kids are going to be hiding under their desks again for nuclear drills? And if not literally, are we going to be raising children in a generation that feels the peril, that feels the world is getting less safe because of nuclear weapons than more?
Well, I hope we're not going to be going back to the days of drills underneath desks. But I do think we're in a perilous new era where we could see an arms race.
And when you say we may be in a moment of a new nuclear arms race, why? Is that dictated by the fact that countries feel increasingly insecure and like the world is shifting around them?
I think countries feel more insecure. I think Russia is clearly a revisionist power. We see what they've done in Ukraine. And I think Putin wants to continue to pursue his war in Ukraine. And again, the massive Chinese buildup, the Chinese have not been very transparent about their intentions. So it does feel like we're in a more dangerous, less secure world.
Christine Wormuth, former Army Secretary, President, and CEO of the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Great to see you here at the Munich Security Conference.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Even the pros admit